There's one thing I noticed about the front of the car. I'm just gonna give you a better look of what I'm talking about. And you can see around the edges we have this jagged pixelation here. And really part of the problem is maybe there's not enough texture space for this part of the car. And it also possibly could be some stretching of the UVs over here. So we're going to fix that real quick just so it's not a problem anymore. And to do that, we're going to go to edit mode. And we have a lot of stuff hidden, so we're going to press Alt H to unhide everything. And to fix this problem, basically what we're going to have to do is unwrap this area again. But to make it easier to select this area as well as unwrap it in the future if we need to do it again, we're going to make a few more seams here. So first, all we're going to do is select one of these faces anywhere in here and press L to select everything. And then we're going to do the same as before. We're going to press Z for wireframe and C for circle selection, and we're going to start deselecting everything that we don't want. And again, we don't want the lights, and we don't want this part down here, because this is that mesh part that you can see here. So we don't want that. We just want this front splitter here. So just press Z and C for circle select. Use your middle mouse to start deselecting everything that we don't want. Make sure you get these bottom triangles here. The only one we want is like this one that's on the basically the flat surface there. And we also don't want this whole edge loop here, so we're going to hold Alt and Shift, right click on one of these edges to deselect. Do the same here, Alt, Shift, and right click. And since this is no longer mirrored, we have to go to the other side and do the same thing. So just press Z and then C, middle mouse to deselect again. Just make sure you get these triangles on the bottom, or these faces on the bottom. And this is basically what it should look like when you're done. You should have this little face in here. I'm going to press period to try to fix my view a bit. Period on the number pad, that is. And yep, see, so you just want the one that's on the floor basically. This other triangle's on the way up, so we don't want that one. And you can double check on the other side, make sure you have the same exact selection. But once you have that selected, what we want to do is go to select. And let me find it here. We want to do select boundary loop. And what that's going to do is select the entire boundary here, which is going to make it really easy to add in our seam. But I just want to check real quick, because over here there's actually an edge we need to select. So make sure you're in edge selection, hold shift and select this edge. And we're going to have to do the same on the other side. So we have this edge here, we want to hold shift and right click to select it. Once we have that, we're going to go to shading and UVs and then click mark seam. Once that's done, to make sure we did it correctly, we're going to go to face selection, select a face, press L, and the only part of the car you should get is this front splitter part. You shouldn't have anything else selected once you press L. So I've done it correctly here. If you haven't, just go back and try again. Now I'm going to switch this over here from paint to view. And again, if you want to move this menu around, just middle mouse click and drag. That will slide this menu around. And just zoom in if you need to. And now what we want to do is unwrap this again. So we're going to make sure your mouse is in this window. Press U and choose unwrap. I'm just going to drag it out of the way for a minute. And we're also going to unwrap this other part, so I'm going to select one of these faces, press L, U, and then unwrap. This will help fix some of the stretching that there was, and it will help make it a lot smoother instead of having that jagged edge. So I'm going to scale this down with S in this window and drag it over with G. And then I'm going to do R for rotate and -90, and then press enter. Scale it down again with S. And we're going to reposition it basically here, almost where it was basically. And to make room for the front splitter so it has more texture space, I'm also going to move this as well. So I'm going to select one of the faces and press L to get all of it. And then use G and R as well as S to relocate this part of the car over here. We didn't have to change the size of it by too much, so we didn't lose too much detail there. And now we're going to select the face here, press L, S to scale it down, G to move it, and we're going to use R to rotate, and we're going to just try to fit this in here as best we can. I'm going to see if flipping it around will do anything, so I'm going to press S, Y, -1, or maybe SX -1. See if this will work any better than having it the other direction. Maybe slightly better like this. We can also try moving this one back a little by doing G then X and really trying to get it as close to the edge as possible. You don't want to go over this border right here, but you do want to move this as much as you can because we want to make sure we have a lot of texture space. For this part of the car. I think that's probably about as good as we're going to get it. So now that should help us fix this problem. Real quick, I'm going to press Tab to get out of edit mode. And I should be in object mode. If you're not, just left click and select object mode. I want to hide this lamp again, so I'm going to select it with right click, H to hide it. Select the car by right clicking it. And I'm going to go to texture paint. So now you can see we have some problems here. Since we moved our texture or UVs around, it's now using the color that was already in that spot, because you can see the outline of where the front splitter used to be. And now all the stuff that we moved into that new position, it's using the color that we used before, so we're getting this discoloration here, or at least the color that we don't want. So to fix that, we're going to go to Tools, and this blend mode here, it's on Mix right now. Left click it and choose Erase Alpha. And the easiest way in this case to do it is we're just going to change this from View to Paint. And my brush is really small, so I'm going to press F and make it bigger. Now all we have to do is left click and drag to draw over the stuff that we want to get rid of. I think I'm actually probably drawing on... Nope, I think I avoided actually messing this up, so that's a good sign. Just be careful not to mess that up any. I can see I have a little more stuff right there I had to get rid of. So that's how you erase the color basically. But now we want to paint that color back on. So I'm going to go to Face Selection, and it's already selected for me. If it's not for you, you can select the face and then press L to select that area, since we made that part separate from the rest of it. We're going to need to change this back to Mix, and then select whatever color we want. I actually forget which color we use, so we're just gonna pick a new color here. You can change your brush size if you want, it's not important, and then start painting back on like we had it before. If you want to use a different color, as usual, if you want to use a darker or lighter gray, feel free to test things out. You can take a look at it by just clicking that button and looking at it. And maybe you want a darker color, maybe you don't. I think I probably want this darker one. I used it earlier and it looked pretty nice. I'm not sure if I like the lighter color because it doesn't blend well with the dark color of the bottom. But really the choice is up to you if you want to use something different than what I'm using. And there are some spots here that are hard to get underneath, so just be aware that, big over here can be kind of hard to get in this little corner. So that's going to make it a lot easier for us now, because if we ever want to change the color of the front splitter, it's now all separated. It's a lot easier to select it now. And we are going to be changing it because it's going to have to be carbon fiber for some of the variations, because I do plan to make different variations for colors and everything. So that solves that problem for the most part. We can see now here there's still slight pixelation, but it's a lot better than it was. Especially on the top, it's not as bad as what it was before, so it's an improvement at least. Just make sure you have all the stuff painted, because right there was kind of not painted. That's why it looked a little strange. So that's good. Since I like it, I'm just going to save it because I don't feel like losing it again. So I'm going to click image, save as image, and I'm just going to save over this one by clicking right here. So one more detail I wanted to add was in the back. I'm going to go to edit mode real quick just to make this a little easier. I'm in face selection. I'm going to select a face over here and just press period to focus my view. So down here actually, this part is actually supposed to be a darker color as well, just like these hydraulic things. So we're going to do something similar here. We're going to separate this out again because if we don't, we'll have more pixelation and it's going to be even worse than the front of the car because I tried it already. So we're going to hold Alt, right click here to get this edge loop, hold Shift and Alt, and continue right clicking on a couple of those until you have these. Then you just want to hold Shift and select these individually, these faces here. And there's also one on this part here. And I actually missed an edge loop, so I'm going to hold Alt, Shift, and make sure I get this inner edge loop. So all of it should be selected now. And we're going to have to do the same on the other side. Just do the exact same thing. Hold Alt and Shift, right click, and continue doing that. Make sure you get this inner edge loop, then hold Alt or just Shift by itself and right click to select these as well, and then don't forget the one that's in the front. And now, just as before, we're going to go to select boundary loop, shading in UVs, and then mark seam. I'm just going to switch this back to tools for now. So now we have that seam there. Now all we have to do is select everything that's within the seam. So I went to face selection, select a face, press L, go to the other one, and all we have to do now is press L. To unwrap this again, we're going to press U and choose unwrap. And then over here, we need to change this again to view. Zoom in a ton, at least in my case. Scale this down quite a bit. There's not a ton of space to put it, but you can really put these wherever you want. I mean, you could put them here maybe, or you can put them over here, up here. So I'm just gonna select the face, press L. I'm gonna move these one at a time and see where maybe I can get the most texture space. Which may be something like this. But just to compare, I want to see if I can get anything more out of this. It doesn't look like it. So it looks like one of the better spots is down here. You could put these on top of each other if you wanted to, and it's probably a good idea because I don't think you would make them a different color. I mean, you could. If you wanted to make these a different color for some reason, you'd want to not put them on top of each other. You can see the angle of this is left to right on a downward, and then this is right to left. So that just means that they're kind of flipped, so we have to flip this one by pressing S, Y, -1, and that will make them the same orientation. and then we can just scale it down. These won't be perfect matches because I'm not going to put the time into actually making them match up perfectly. Although if I use snapping with control, I think we can get it pretty close. That's actually really close right there. So, and all I was doing was pressing G, holding control, and that will snap it. And even though this isn't perfect, we're just going to draw over it. We'll draw over both of them to make sure that we get the result we're looking for. So now that we have that, I have this one on the left selected. I'm going to select the one on the right just by hovering over it, pressing L. We're going to go back to Texture Paint. Click on this for face selection, Shift H to hide everything else. And for this, I actually don't want to paint the entire thing. I want to paint most of this part. And we actually could change the color. I want to see what the other one is. So to test which color this is, I'm going to hold S. And then let go over this color. And it actually is that color, so I'm going to go back to face select here. So what I want to do is go down here, change this from space to line, go back up and change the radius to maybe 10. I want to actually draw basically a straight line here because I don't want to paint this entire thing. I just want to paint till about there. So just click and drag, make a line, and then make another line so that you have this boundary. And we want to paint in between that boundary. Anything above it we want to fill in with this color. You can change this back to space once you're ready to fill it in. And if you need to make a smaller brush so you don't go over the line, you can go ahead and do that. And you can see over here it's basically the same. It looks like everything's okay. It looks like we did a pretty good job of actually making sure that they were basically on top of each other. You can paint over it again just to be sure that nothing was missed. Just be careful not to go over the line, of course. And that should be good for that. I just got out of face selection so I could see the rest of it. And the only reason I didn't want to paint further is because it would have been all the way out here, and it looks kind of strange when almost the whole underside here is darker. I like it more restrained to this area. So that should be that. Now, at least on mine, I gotta repaint this part because it got lost when I lost everything else, I think. So first I'm gonna save this because, of course, talking about losing stuff, we don't want that, so we're gonna make sure it's saved, everything's okay. Now what we do want, I'm going to go to edit mode, Alt H, unhide everything. And we want to start selecting the wipers again. If you already have your wipers painted, like if you didn't lose any of your data, you can basically skip this part because I'm just redoing it because I lost my stuff. it's going to be the same thing as what it was before. Unless I want to change the color, maybe I'll make it a lighter color. I'm not sure I like the total black color, or very close to black like we had it before. So make sure everything is selected and then Shift H, and we'll go to texture paint, change it to face select, choose whatever color you want. I may try, I think we use this dark one. I'm going to try a slightly lighter color. Change the brush size with F if you need to. And just real quick, I'm going to see what that looks like. Not too bad. Maybe we'll just see what this looks like. This darker one. I think it sort of blends in a little better with a lighter color, but I'm not sure which color I want to use. That's kind of nice there. I think that's a decent color. It's a bit lighter than some of the other outer parts, which makes it stick out. So it kind of makes people, you know, look at our work that we did, because we actually put quite a bit of detail into this. So it's nice to not really hide it too much. You want people to see that you actually put some effort into this part of the car. But of course, if you want it to be a different color, it's, you know, it's up to you. It's not really, nothing is set in stone when it comes to texture painting. Colors are really up to you. And I'm going to make a bunch of different colors and variations. So and again, some of these pieces here are hard to paint on. We got white lines here. So to fix it, we're going to make some extra bleed over here. We're going to make this color bleed a bit. So I need to switch this back to paint. Perhaps make a smaller brush. I do believe these are the wiper blades here, so we're going to need to paint over, make sure there's a bit of bleed, which just means that there's some color that goes beyond where these faces are. That's all that I'm talking about when I mean adding some extra bleed to it. And just to be safe, we'll make sure these have little extra as well. And be careful not to paint over any of these other pieces that are close by. If you make a mistake, just use Control Z to undo it, to undo your painting mistake. So I think that got pretty much, well, there's still some extra white right there. I believe it was these down here for those pieces. And there's got to be another piece somewhere. Maybe this right here. And I'm just going to check, make sure I didn't miss anything. Looks like we are pretty good. Everything looks to be in order. Our wiper blades look nice. So I'm going to click this button. Take a look at our car. It looks pretty nice at this point, I think. And I'm going to save it again, of course, once I finish each part. I'm just going to keep saving because losing stuff is really not what you want. So we have that. So another easy thing to paint is this door blade. It's just a solid black color. You can make it any type of variation of gray if you want. We can use this darker color that we used for the front splitter if we want. We can go into face select, Alt H, unhide everything, select one of these faces, press L, and remember that these two pieces are separate. You can make them a different color if you want, like if you want this cap to be a darker gray or black, you can do that. If you don't want it to be a darker color, you can use the same color. I'm just going to press Shift H, make sure I get all of it, because sometimes it looks like you have all of it, but you actually don't. So I'm going to press Alt H now that I'm satisfied, select the face, press L, and we'll see what happens when I do a darker color, see if I like it or not. Or you can try a lighter color, whatever suits your fancy. And we'll try a lighter color for kicks here, maybe even lighter than that. Just trying to get something that looks the way that I want it, basically. I think I'll probably stick with maybe this color here. A lighter color kind of draws your attention down to it, and I'm not really sure I want people like staring at my triangle with a beveled edge. I think there's other things that they probably want to look at. So I'm going to press Shift H just to make sure I get this whole thing. I can go into edit mode and then press period to focus in on it, and then switch back to texture paint so I can get this this edge that's behind, or this face that's behind. So that doesn't look too bad. It's a nice darker color. It doesn't really draw your attention. You can focus on the rest of the car, hopefully. And I noticed we just missed a piece here. So I'm going to press Alt H in face select to unhide everything. I don't even remember which color we use. It's this one, okay. And we want to paint over these right here because we missed it. And you're going to have to do the same on the other side. Since it's not mirrored anymore, we got to do it on both sides. And I'm seeing some pixelation down here on the bottom, or some like mist white spots. I'm gonna just see if painting, oh, whoop, actually it looks like the bottom's a darker color. The bottom must be this dark color. Okay, so we're gonna have to figure out where the bottom is. Where did I put the bottom? Down here, I think. Is this the bottom? If it is, we have some color variation that maybe we didn't want. I'm just gonna paint over and see if anything changes. I'm not sure where this is, so I'm gonna go to edit mode, switch to view, period on the number pad. Yeah, that is it. I'm not sure which piece is the lighter color though. Some of this has a lighter color, as you can see in the UV editor here. I don't know which parts actually got the lighter. Oh, it must be this, right? Yep. Okay. So we forgot to paint that last time. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a little bleed. It's gotta be careful because it's kind of close to everything else. So don't draw on anything other than slightly outside this part. You want to be real careful. Don't mess up any of the other work that you've done. And Control Z if you need to undo anything. Since this is basically a straight line, you could also switch to the line brush. It'll work in this UV image editor as well. So that's just another option if you ever need it or want it. And we'll see if that fixed our problem. It probably didn't, because it's probably a combination of it did, I think, maybe change it a little, made it look a little better, but we have to go back and do the same for the front splitter just to make sure that that has the color we're looking for. So I'm going to switch back to space because this is going to be a bit more tricky. Get the color that we need. And we got to go around the outside of this thing here. If you want to increase your brush, use F. Just be careful again when you're getting close to a different UV island like this one, that you don't draw over it. Doesn't look like I've fixed the problem yet because we still got those white spots, but this is just like a just in case thing. Just in case there's other spots that I don't recognize right now. This will make sure we get everything. So it looks like we actually are starting to get rid of that problem there. But I'm just going to do the rest of this, like I said, just to be sure that we don't have any issues in other areas. Be real careful here not to get too close to that windshield part that's on the right here, because you don't want to mess that up. That's not the easiest thing. Well, it's kind of easy to fix, but it's good to be careful anyway. almost done with this, and then we can choose something else to work on. Once you're done, of course, save it so that you don't lose anything, because Blender likes to make you do the work twice to make sure you know what you're doing so that you can learn. It's really, that's the motive behind it. They want you to keep practicing. So we have these letters, they're kind of silver. Not letters, and you know what I mean. Well, this is a letter. But anyway, I think this S is always orange. I'm actually not sure if it is orange just because the body color is orange or if it's always orange, but pretty simple to fix anyway, I think. So we're going to switch to face select one of these, press L, do the same across this entire thing. I'm not sure if there's faces underneath that we shouldn't be. We removed them, right? Okay, so there's no faces underneath. But we also need this other one. And I can't remember if we stack these. Like if we put them on top of each other on the UV island. I don't remember how we did this. So we may have to paint both of them. So once they're selected, go back to texture paint. And we want it to be like a silverish color maybe. Maybe lighter than that, I don't know. Make your brush bigger with F if you want. And start painting. We can actually paint over the S to begin with, and then we'll just paint it again later. It's not really an issue. I'm going to press Shift H just to make it a little easier to paint. And it looks like we did not put them together on the UV island because we have to paint both of them. So that should be decent. It doesn't look too shabby. You could of course do a brighter color if you want to. I'm going to save this first. Maybe try a slightly brighter color. Just so it sticks out a little more and looks a little more silver like it's supposed to. To focus in on these, I'm going to go to edit mode, press period, because it's getting kind of annoying to move the view when the view is not really centered on these objects. And we'll see if I like this better. If not, since we just did the other one, we can probably just Control Z it. But I think that looks fine. It's a bit more, it stands out a bit more. And it stands out fairly well in the real thing, so I think that sort of matches it fairly closely. So now we need an orange color if you want to make the S orange. I honestly don't know if it changes color depending on the body color of the car. I don't know if it's just coincidence that this one's orange and the body color's orange. It's not even really the same orange, it's like a darker orange. So I'm not sure if it's coincidence or if it's just the way that they always do it, but I'm going to go back here, select the S, press L, and just paint it orange. If you don't like this color, you can make it brighter. I think it needs to be maybe a brighter. Or just, there we go, that's a pretty decent color. So I'm going to focus in on this again because it's starting to get a bit annoying to change my view. And to do that, of course, is just use period on the number pad on while you're in edit mode. It doesn't work in, or maybe, no, it doesn't work in texture paint the way you expect it to. So make sure you're in edit mode when you do it. And since we're getting like some white color that's not really going away right here on these edges, we're probably going to have to go in and interesting. So we have some overlap. This is what happens when you have overlap of faces. Is you'll have color when you're painting on one thing, color will start showing up on something else. That means that you have faces that are overlapping, which is always a bad thing, because it means when you paint on this, it will change the color over here. When you paint over here, it will change the color over there. So basically you never get things to look the way you want them. So we're going to have to go to edit mode, switch to view, try to find where all this stuff is going on over here. And this is pretty crazy how this all got split up like that. So I want to see what everything looks like, so I'm going to do Alt H and see how this is. So we actually have a ton of space that we can use. We can just select our S here and move these out of the way. Everything else can be together because it's all going to be the same color, so any changes, any mistaking changes that are made, it won't visually change anything because the color will still be the same. So I'm just going to put these sort of together. It's not really important to put them together, but there's that one. Now we got to do the other side. We just want to get it away from the other colors or the other letters so that they don't interfere with each other, because basically they were too close. Like all these are so close together that they're actually somewhat overlapping each other just enough that the color will get transferred from one to the other, and we don't want that, at least not on this S here, because it's not supposed to be the same color as the rest of it. But since the other letters are all supposed to be the same color, the S is the only one we need to move. So now we want to go back to texture paint, try this again, and it'll make it easier to actually paint it. We can go to the paint over here, find our letters, and we can just simply paint in this area, and it will instantly give us whatever color we selected, and do the same down here. I probably should have put these a little closer together. It's kind of inconvenient, I guess, that they're all spread apart. When I put them all close right there, it's alright though. So that looks actually pretty good. We could make it a little brighter. Perhaps. But I'm going to save this color first. and then click on this orange part here and go to HSV, and I want to change the saturation to lighten it up a little bit, and we'll see how that looks maybe. A little darker, I think. So I want to increase the saturation. I'm having second thoughts about the darker part, but anyway, you get the point. So that doesn't look too bad. We compare it to the real thing, and it's not, not too bad. It's not perfect. It's not the same exact color as what that is, but it's pretty close, I think. So there's that. What else do we want to do? First, we want to save. And I guess we could probably do the windows. The windows are actually not too difficult, especially I think with this car. And I didn't really load up any good images for the side. I don't even know if I have a really good one, but because this window is basically the indented part that we did. So selecting it's pretty simple. We can just select this this indented part. Pick whatever color we want for the window. It can be a lighter color, darker color. Feel free to experiment. And what I like to do, and what I've seen a lot of other people do when they do windows, is they'll try to make a gradient. And I'm not really the best at doing it, but so say we use this color, and then we want to use a lighter color for the gradient. So this lighter color, I guess. If you have a complex window, you could use a curve, but for this, we don't really need to. So I'm going to change this to maybe 5 pixels, and I'm just going to use the line brush, I guess. You could also, and I'm going to press 3 for side view to make sure I'm perfectly in side view. You could also just draw it by hand. I do that a lot of times. Like I just use the space brush or stroke method, whatever it is. And I'll just draw whatever I want for a shape. And you can see why using a curve would make it easier, because my hand wasn't totally steady, so doing it by hand can kind of be tricky. So if you want to do a curve, you could add a new curve. To get rid of this old curve, because you see we got the old curve for the back window, just click the X and then make a new curve. So now it's not there anymore. And hold Control to make a curve point, and then make another curve point. You can make as many as you want. I think for this we only really need 2. And now we can just move the handles to make any type of curve that you want, and then do draw a curve. So that's obviously a lot smoother than what I was able to do by hand. Then you can move back to the space brush and start filling this in. Being careful not to go over that line that we just made. And when I first actually started doing this, I didn't know about this curve thing, or even if I saw it, like I had no idea how to use it. And I was spending like a ton of time just trying to make these nice curves completely by hand. So it's definitely nice to not have to do that, because that takes a lot of time, as you can imagine. Trying to make a perfect curve by hand, it's a little bit tedious there. It's probably too much of a contrast. We have this dark color on the bottom and a lighter color there. So all we want to do is make something maybe a little lighter than what we had. So I'm going to press 3 to go back to side view. Change the radius back to 5. We're going to try this curve again. And just remember that like how much you're zoomed in is going to make a difference, and your positioning of everything's going to make a difference. So you got to be careful when you're using curves to get your view lined up properly, because even though the curve won't change, since your view is changing, I actually probably want to move it down slightly just to make sure, and then I'll fill it in. Or even you could leave it like that if you want like a triple gradient. I've never really done that, but that actually doesn't look too bad, having a triple gradient like that. I kind of like it actually. I think I might leave it like that, because this top color kind of matches this one. But I'm going to save this other color real quick so we don't lose it. This one that's slightly lighter. I wish it was easier to organize these and name them, but I'm not sure if you can or not. So we have that now. That looks kind of nice. This front window is going to be a little more tricky. And it looks kind of like there's this darker plastic on the side. There's a lighter gray plastic on the top. You get that black underneath dashboard thing, whatever it is, that kind of holds the window in place, I guess. So it's going to be interesting to deal with that. So I think maybe for now we'll call it good on this part. So I'm going to make sure I save my images. If you made changes to your base color, which you shouldn't have, you can save your base color. And I'm going to get out of face select and just save this. And then we will continue doing more details and finishing up the rest of the car.